John, I'm so grateful to have you back, brother. It's just such an honor to talk to you. So much of my own healing journey, God has used you in many ways. I know He's used you for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of men to find healing. I've certainly been the beneficiary of much of your wisdom and the way God's used you in my own life. But for those who may not have heard of you yet, tell us who you are and what you're up to these days.
Yeah, thanks, Jerrad. It's nice to be back on your podcast. So I was trained as a therapist a very long time ago, mid 90s. And early in my work, I found myself working more and more, mostly with men or men in their marriages. And out of that, I wrote a book for men called Wild at Heart that did fairly well and has kind of gone around the world helping to heal men and their families. And then out of that work, we actually launched an organization called Wild at Heart. And we do a variety of things, podcasts and films and studies, both for men and for women. Because we ran our men's work for a couple of years and pretty quickly learned that guy gets some healing, but he walks back into a house where there isn't healing.
Yeah.
And we need to bring the spouse along.
Yeah.
So I do this with my wife, Stacy. We have a small team of people here in Colorado. Love what we get to do. Love being in this line of work. Just, helping people restore.
Yeah, man. Can you talk a little bit about that connection between, a lot of guys come here because they want to lead their families well. They're jumping on this podcast because they're like, I want to be the man that my family needs me to be. And something that we've been talking about recently on the podcast is that we can't really be that man until we find healing in our own soul as a man. And can you just, from your experience, your decades of experience, kind of tie those in, begin to tie the dots between like, why does a man need to find healing? Or how does he even go about finding healing as he's got little kids in the house and a mortgage to pay and a job? And why is that so important? And where does he begin?
Here's the difficult truth that I did not want to face. I'll tell you a little bit of my story in a moment. You teach what you know, but you reproduce what you are. And you can't get away from that as a dad. If you're driven, angry, perfectionistic, you're going to reproduce that. Like, if you're sullen and silent and withdrawn, you're going to reproduce that. It doesn't matter how much wisdom you have. The greater impact is who you are. And so I was humming along, excited, with, early marriage and 3 young boys, and all of this anger started coming out of me in my early 30s. And I could see it wounding my sons. And it was dumb stuff. I mean, it was, breaking a dish when they're doing the dishes, or just dumb stuff. Didn't pick up their room. And I would blow up. And I realized I need to go talk to somebody. Now, here's how clueless I was. I grew up in an alcoholic home. Both my father and my mother were alcoholics. My mother was what we used to call a functioning alcoholic. She went back to work. She had a career. But in the evening, it was booze to get you through the night. And so I was almost like a homeless kid, a lot of time out on the street, a lot of time in the drug world and, criminal record and that sort of thing. I never dealt with any of that. And so in my mid-30s, it starts showing up. And thank God, I met a really good therapist who very kindly started walking me back into my story and childhood trauma. And it was literally life-changing, as many of you guys know now. Like it's the most wonderful thing you can do for your marriage and for your kids is to go deal with your brokenness. And then the beautiful thing is it also birthed all of this because then we realized, oh, wait a second, we can't just give guys kind of the hoorah motivational stuff. Yeah, we need to lead them into deeper healing, more personal integration, And then, yes, absolutely, guidance on living with the mystery of a woman and guidance on raising sons and daughters and how different they are. Yep, absolutely. All that stuff is super helpful. But yeah, my own story, it is the story, right?
Yeah. It's some guy I think commented on a podcast that we did recently, and they said, I so badly want that. I so badly want to find healing. I know that I'm numbing in certain ways, that I'm coping in unhealthy ways from pain, but I can't identify what the pain is. And I think a lot of guys resonate with that because when they look at their childhood, whatever their childhood is, it feels normal. Your childhood in your mind probably felt normal. This is just
It's what you know.
it's what you know. And when I was doing some intensive therapy with my cohort, nobody went in there and thought my childhood was traumatic.
Yes.
Not one guy thought that. But as we hear their stories individually, it's like, oh, dude, that's pretty traumatic what you went through. Like, no, if that were my child, I would never want my child to experience what you experienced.
Exactly.
And so I guess for a guy who's even trying to piece together his story, like where does he begin to think? Because most guys I think would say, well, my childhood wasn't traumatic. I didn't have any big event. My parents did the best that they could.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I do. And I think many guys also in a good desire to honor their parents, don't want to throw them under the bus. And so let's come at it from a different angle then. I think if we start with the core needs of every little boy, this will help men go, every little boy has two driving core needs. And the fascinating thing is if these don't get met and met well, they are shaping the man you are today. And the core needs are love and validation. And it's mom and dad, and we can talk about mother-father wounds are different. And we probably should talk about that, but he looks primarily to dad. Do you love me? And do I have what it takes? And dad's job is to make that deeply experiential. It's got to be embodied. A couple of words, high school graduation, I'm so proud of you. That doesn't get it done. It is 1,000 times over the course of the developing young boy. Dad loves to read me stories. Dad loves to wrestle with me. Dad wants to go out in the backyard and chuck pine cones at each other. Dad, snowball fights and bike rides and ice cream and all that stuff. It gets embodied into the boy. He has an experiential delight of his father. I delight in you. I adore you. I love hanging out with you. You're worth my time. And that gets deep down in the soul of belovedness. Okay, so, and then when that doesn't happen, oftentimes in adolescence, the young man will take that to young women and look for belovedness and a sense of belonging and a sense of delight and affection and sexuality and promiscuity and that sort of thing. And then as he goes into his adult life, he needs to be the center of attention. He wants to be the first person in the small group to be asked how you're doing. There's just this ache in there. And this actually drives a lot of pornography, actually. It doesn't have anything to do with sexuality. It's that search for belovedness. Okay, and then the second core need is validation. You have what it takes. And the little guy, that you see him in the grocery store and he's still got his Spider-Man pajamas on. And mom couldn't get him to take those off. Like, that is essential boyhood. It's like, am I powerful? Do I have what it takes? Can I handle my world? Well, I have a strength to bring in. And again, over 1,000 experiences, both through word and then through what I want to say are curated challenges. Okay, so first through word, the father, I'm so proud of you. Wow, good job on that, man. I saw you in the choral concert. You crushed it. You're amazing. It's just, and again, it's not just, the physical, the athletics, it's whatever the boy's good at. So, wow, great job on figuring out that problem. So, you're amazing at math. So impressed with you. So it's lots of words. But then it's also curated experience because, again, it has to be embodied. The boy has to discover for himself that he has what it takes. And so you buy him a mountain bike and he upgrades to dirt trails and he discovers, whoa, I can go down that really scary hill. And when you're building the tree for it, you don't just do it. You hand him the tools and you help, and he realizes, wow, Dad trusts me with a power saw, or whatever that might be, right? He gets an embodied experience. My dad thinks I have what it takes, but now I know I do. I faced that really hard thing and I did it. And okay, again, 1,000 times, not just once and not just a ceremony, because, the ceremonies are back in now and those can be very, very beautiful, but the ceremony needs to be the culmination of 1,000 stories, right? Of love and validation. Most men in our world today are every moment of their adult life seeking validation still. And what they'll do is they are running from anything that could expose them as not having what it takes. So if they don't feel adequate to talk to their 16-year-old daughter, they won't do it. They'll hide, duck, dodge, ask mom to do it. If they don't think they can handle the promotion at work, they'll turn down a promotion or, the fear of not having it. But at the same time, where they feel a sense of validation, like it might be at the gym. Oh, he's going to be at the gym all the time because he feels strong. He gets validation there. Or if it's with women, right? And women are telling him, you're so amazing. He's going to probably have serial affairs. Still looking for that. Okay, so those two needs, that core. So guys listening to this can think back over their story and go, did you experience over 1,000 times the bodily experience of my dad adores me? Not just provided for me or was faithful to my mom, but he adores me. And over 1,000 times, he led me into the experience and told me I really do have what it takes.
Two things come to mind when I hear you talk like that. One is I didn't experience that. Most guys I know would probably say I did not have I didn't have 1,000 experiences with my dad where I felt delighted in by him. The other thing that comes to mind is I think about my now 14-year-old son and I fear, would he say that? As a dad, I have that fear. Like, would my son feel like he would say, no, my dad, 1,000 experiences over my life where my dad delights. So those are the two emotions that come up for me. I don't know if you can see on my screen because we're kind of split screen here, but do you see that little monkey right there?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. When I was in intensive therapy, they had me hold that monkey for 2 weeks straight, 24/7. And he represented me as a child.
Little you.
Little me. And that was one of the most healing things that I experienced because so much of my life as an adult, like you were talking about, I'm seeking validation. I mean, that's my life story. It sounds like it's many men's life story, seeking validation. And in the ways that I've sought validation, it's brought shame. It's just constant shame and inadequacy. Like I'm never good and I'm always chasing. I can never reach it. And I just need more. It's this addictive pursuit of somebody tell me I'm good enough. Yeah. Something make me feel like I'm good enough. And when they told me, when I talked about this last week on the podcast, when I was looking at myself as a child, it was so healing for me, to be like, man, I get why I didn't grow up with a dad. My dad wasn't around. Yeah. And so it made sense to me. And I actually started to feel less shameful, even though my sin carried the same weight and disgust, but it was actually compassion for the little boy that was like, this is what I was searching for.
Yeah. That's right.
That was incredible.
Can I add another layer to that?
Yeah,
now?
please.
Okay, so let's go to mom for a moment. So mom is supposed to be the experience of unconditional love and mercy. So when the little guy wants to jump off the roof, he asks dad, not mom. When the little guy hurts his knee, he runs to mom, not dad. Okay. So mom is supposed to embody, again, a very deeply embodied experience of love and mercy and nourishment, like literally at the breast. So your earliest attachment relationship is with mom. And for years, I had this guilt in me that I had no affection for my mom. I didn't hate her. I said no affection for her. And when she died, it was a relief to me. In my adult life, I was relieved. I felt like a schmuck, man. What a horrible human being. Like, you don't love your mom? What the heck? And then I finally realized, oh, it's because she was a totally unattached woman and totally unattached to me. I have no memory of playing with her. I have no memory of her reading a book to me. She had to go back to work because of my dad's alcoholism. So I have mercy towards her, but she's gone. And if you don't receive that essential nourishment from mom, and I don't just mean the physical, but in every way. I mean, the Italian mother, right? Come on in and have some food. The Jewish mother, kind of those examples of you look like you're losing weight. That sense of I want you to have plenty from me, affection, time, nourishment. Again, if the boy doesn't get that growing up, that's going to shape us into adult life. And that can be the other side, actually, of the pornography search, right? It's that search for nourishment, love, even attachment. Doesn't work, as you and I both know. But that might help guys think a little bit more about their childhood. Yeah, what did I receive from mom? Was she critical? Was love conditional on behavior, performance, being a certain type of boy? Was I her emotional confidant? Did she turn to me because she had a sad marriage? All that stuff. Because here's the thing that really creeped me out was my mom would call me sweetheart. But there was nothing behind that. There was no embodied experience. There wasn't 1,000 stories of that. So I'm like, you don't have the right to call me that. Like, there's nothing here. And it was a great lifting of guilt when I realized this isn't just because I'm a hard-hearted guy. It's because she was just literally, she had an unattached mother. She was a very unattached woman. It's like, oh, well, I can have mercy on her now. And I can also understand why I didn't feel a whole lot of connection with her.
Yeah. So I have a friend that says, like, if our brains are being programmed, they're being hardwired as kids. Can they be reprogrammed?
Yes.
And how does it get? So the guy says that's like, okay, so there were similarities with my mom.
Yeah.
I didn't have that thing that you described with my dad. My brain was programmed this way as a kid. How do you reprogram your brain?
Yeah. This is the good news, guys. And this is where the neuroscience has been really encouraging in recent years, that they've discovered the incredible, they call it the plasticity of the brain. Your brain is actually very malleable, thank God. It's not a hardwiring you get, and then at 9 years old, you're stuck with that deck of cards for the rest of your life. It can be reshaped. New attachments can be found. And I'm trying to think of the name. Robert Caron has a huge book on attachment, and he did tons and tons of research, and it was off of Bowlby's research on attachment. And the encouraging thing that he comes to in the end of the book is you can heal the failure of childhood attachment, both to mom and dad, through secure adult attachment, through friendships, through a good marriage. But especially for those of us who are coming from a faith tradition, you receive unconditional love and mercy from God, and plenty of nourishment. The scriptures would say the streams of God are full of water, meaning there's plenty. You have plenty. And that for me was very, very healing. I'm just so grateful I can say, like, I've got a great relationship with my grandchildren. I think they feel very attached to me. So you can heal it. You can heal it, and you can become a different person.
Well, I feel like I'm living testament. I'm experiencing that. I'm
Yeah,
experiencing that reprogramming, and
yeah,
it's life changing.
yeah,
To go back to those wounds and to start to recognize that stuff. And the attachment thing, that's interesting because I really I didn't know really anything about attachment in the last up until the last 6 months.
yes.
And I didn't realize how anxiously attached I was. The moment my wife would like pull away, and pull away could even be just a look.
Yep.
I mean, it could be
Yep.
all
Tone of
nonverbal.
voice. Yep.
Tone of voice, the way she hugged, like it could be the smallest things. And I would just get so anxious.
Yeah.
I would just like, oh, for a guy who's like, they've never heard about the attachment stuff. They don't know. Maybe they feel that. Can you just give us a really high level overview of like attachment and everywhere from anxiously attached to what do they call it? Avoidant attachment, where you just,
Yeah.
you're the one not attaching. Can you give us a really high level overview of how guys might fit into that?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. So if you would have asked Stacy in the first 10 years of our marriage, do you have a good marriage? She would have said yes. John's a good guy. He's faithful. He remembers my birthday, and he's great with the kids and stuff. But if you were to ask her, is there a disappointment? She would have said, he doesn't need me. So I had made a childhood vow. There was even a specific day where I had gotten arrested, and I was a minor, so my dad had to come down to the police station and get me out. There was no conversation. There was no intervention on my parents' part. No love. No, it was just silence. And that day, I knew I'm on my own, and I made a choice to never attach. I was not just attachment avoidant. I was attachment utterly, I forget the word here, but protective against it. Okay.
Just resistant.
Utterly resistant.
Yeah.
Thank you. Poor Stacy. So she's married to a good guy, but there's not a secure attachment in the marriage, right? Yeah. Okay. So depending on what your childhood experience is, if love was conditional, if love was given, withdrawn, parents came and went, you had, several dads kind of thing, you're going to be very anxiously attached, right? And you're going to look for that constant sense of security and reaffirmation on kind of that side of the spectrum. Or you can be down on the other side of like not only avoidant, you don't want it because it doesn't feel good to you. And that may have come from a very clingy mom where it just feels creepy and you were her confidant, you were her little husband because her husband was not emotionally present. That's not healthy attachment. Okay, that's very unhealthy. So you're going to be avoidant or resistant attachment of not wanting it, not trusting attachment. But here's the thing: you're still going to seek it. Like the soul needs to be securely attached. And so you're going to seek it. And it's going to be that pretty smile that you get from your PA or, your physical therapist or something. I mean, it's like you're made for this, fellas. You can't live without it.
I have a little bit of ADD, so forgive me. I'm bouncing all over the place and going all over in this conversation, but I want to go back to something you were talking about with the moms. Because it triggered a thought for me. I mentioned we have a 14-year-old son. He's our one and only boy. He's our oldest. I have one son and 3 little girls. And my mom's actually here in town right now. She's staying with us because it's his birthday. He just turned 14. So I have my mom, grandma, and my wife, and my 14-year-old son who just got an electric bike that goes faster than all the bikes he's ever gone.
Oh, yeah.
So this has become the topic of discussion for every day, all day, we're talking about the safety of this this newfound fast electric bike. For
Yeah.
me as a dad, I'm trying to be a good husband to my wife, honor her. But there's also part of me is like, dude, I want one. This sounds awesome.
Totally.
Let's go do some crazy stuff together. Is there a role? Because you were talking about like the difference between mom and dad, and
Yes.
that idea for a dad to say, I believe you have what it takes to have the power tools and the chainsaw.
Yes.
You know, how do we, I guess, honor our wives who are naturally nurturing and want to protect and be safe to our kids, especially our boys, while also freeing them up
Yeah.
as a dad to say, dude, go take some adventure. Like,
Yeah.
go do something a little bit
Yeah.
risky and get the adrenaline up.
Yeah, the kindest thing, if you're raising boys, the kindest thing you can do is ask your wife to read Wild at Heart. I'm serious. And guys, I've sold enough books. So I'm not trying to sell books, but the number of women who have had a personal epiphany reading that book and went, oh my gosh, I'm overparenting, overprotecting my son. I now see that my role, the mother's role, is to release the boy to enter the world of men. And it's so hard for most moms to do that. It's clunky. Most of them don't do it well. But when they realize that's actually my job, it is to shift from when he's going up the slide for the first time and there's a toddler, she's all over him. That's great. But there comes a point where you let him do it himself. And what's really the goal, anyway, it'd be a lot easier, guys, for me to say it to your wife than for you to. Okay, so that's why I'm just recommending that.
Yeah.
Because the goal actually is not to protect your son from injury. That's not the goal. Your goal is resilience, fortitude, courage. And that only happens through crashing the bike. And then here's the fascinating thing. Someone was telling me about the research that was done on this. The boy who crashes his bike and does not have someone there to interpret it for him, cast the narrative correctly, he will be fearful. The boy who crashes his bike and has someone there to interpret the narrative. Oh, hun, this happens to all of us. No, you're fine. You're going to be great. Oh, that's an owie. Let's take care of that. We'll get a Band-Aid on that. Let's go back out. He is going to develop courage and resilience. And he actually develops the ability to realize crashing's not a big deal. I don't need to be afraid of that. Okay, so this goes back to the 1,000 stories I was talking about, for the father in particular, but mom as well, to help interpret events. You're constantly help with the framing of the narrative. Okay, so I mean, our youngest son he just got laid off. It wasn't a personal evaluation thing. They eliminated a position in his department, and it happened to be his. Well, even at 30, he still needs someone there to go, hey, let's frame the narrative on this. Did you do something wrong? No. Yeah. Did you deserve this? No, I got great reviews. Okay, so let's not take this as a personal failure. Why did they do this? Well, it was budget cuts. Okay, so is this about you? No, it's not about me. But he still needed that, right? Yeah. So in the electric bike thing, yep. And the skateboards and the motorcycles and the water skiing and the cliff jumping and all that stuff. It's mom's job to back off.
I mean, this is your wheelhouse. You talk about this so much. You've helped so many guys with this, but there is a part, like, even as I'm saying this about the electric bike, I know that there are a bunch of dads listening who's like, dude, that would be awesome. Like, I want one. I want the motorcycle. I want to do everything. I want to jump off the cliff. We were just actually, my wife and I got to go on a little trip out of the country. I just got back late last night, and there was like this, we went snorkeling and there was this big cliff, and I'm like, I was trying to figure out in my mind as a 38-year-old, how do I jump off of that cliff into the ocean?
Come on.
And you talk about desire, like this God is speaking to you through that desire. Yeah. Most of us as guys, we don't have these adventures anymore. As men, we think back to our adventurous childhood, and now we're 30, 40, whatever, and we don't have these adventures. And then what I've found in my life and what I've seen in other guys' life is they go look for adventure in inappropriate places.
Yep.
So like, how do you, those desires have become twisted. They've become addictions. They've become secrets. But how does a guy lean into this God-given desire as a man
Yep. Yeah, that's
and
right,
not fall into
guys.
sin?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. You take any of the core desires, they don't go away. They go underground. So it's not like you can't hold your breath for the rest of your life on attachment, on validation, right? And then we now add some other things into it. So the developing, young man in the stages of masculine formation, he needs adventure. Adventure not only nourishes the soul, but it forms you, right? Yvon Chouinard's famous quote of adventure starts when things go wrong. And it's so when the boat flips and we got to fix this, when you're out, four-wheeling and you get hung up on a rock, we're going to have to fix this. You start a business and it goes sideways. We got to fix this. The adventure calls things out of us and forms us. Adventure is such a fundamental need in the masculine soul. You can't just say, well, those were the good days when I was, in college, but, I got a life now. You're holding your breath and you can't hold your breath forever on that desire. You're going to end up, needing to get air and then it goes underground. It goes into, you start, online gambling or, just whatever your deal is that gives you that adventure hit. So, and it doesn't have to be the mega stuff, right? It's like you just start looking again for nourishment. Yes, buy yourself an e-bike. Are you kidding me? They are such a gas.
I'm going to tell my wife. I'm sending this to her immediately.
I got an e-bike. I got an e-mountain bike a couple years ago. Every time I get on it, I start laughing. Because it's just a joy machine. You get on it, you're 12 years old again. Suddenly riding a bike is a blast. So go to small stuff, right? So let me back up and say, adventure is not just play. It is masculine formation. It is nourishment for the soul. You got to get something back in your life. Or like you said, the number one reason guys have affairs is not sex. It's adventure. They're bored to death, right? They're just holding their breath all their life. Yeah. And the same thing I would say also then, one of the other fundamental formations of the masculine soul is the formation of the warrior and the warrior heart, the little Spider-Man guy, the little guy who wants to be a superhero and he wants to crush it and he wants to know he has what it takes. The formation of the warrior is so essential because just about everything you want in life, you're going to have to fight for. I mean, you take masculine friendships and how hard they are to find and how hard they are to maintain. Most men don't have good guy friends. You're going to have to fight for that. And that takes courage and that takes perseverance and it takes the warrior heart. You want to start a business, you want to go to grad school, you want to, plant a church, you want any of your dreams is going to require the warrior heart. And so the formation of, yes, aggression, courage, a battle to fight, that's all good stuff. That's not bad stuff. And again, if what is with the rage? The road rage, the political rage, the online rage, what is with the rage? A lot of it is that pent up warrior in men that's just never had a healthy place to go.
Where does a guy who's got 3 little kids at home and he's married and he's working, where does he express that warrior side of him? Where does he find it?
Yeah. A baseball bat and a trash can.
Okay.
I'm dead serious.
Okay.
Because you got a lot of anger inside of you just because of the world you live in, right? Like
I will say before you move on to this, I just bought myself a punching bag and I put it in our loft. Like my wife is like, this is the worst decorative decision you've ever made. I'm like, but sometimes, man, I had a couple weeks ago, I thought that I completely deleted all of our podcast, like every episode. I thought I completely just wiped out 10 years of stuff. And I had so much just pent up. I just went and started wailing on that
Yes.
punching bag, and
Yep.
it felt awesome.
It does. And again, you can't hold your breath. That's got to have some place to go. And if it doesn't go to the punching bag, I honestly have a baseball bat and a trash can, and I close the garage door so I don't freak the neighbors out, right? But we've got those big recycling bins that are, virtually indestructible, which I have broken the lid of, because you need that. But that's not the only place. Like, I would just let's go to your dreams. And to begin to ask yourself, how are you fighting for your dreams? Now, it may be a long-term plan because you got 3 little ones and you're in a career, but you got to have dreams. And how are you fighting for them? He's a battle to fight. It's not primarily, I'm mad. It's that this is worth fighting for. I'm going to fight for my marriage.
Yeah.
I'm going to fight for friendships. I'm going to fight for my health. For a lot of guys, they may be in a battle for their health. What is worth fighting for in your life right now?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think that's a helpful question because sometimes it might be that a guy just needs to ask himself, is he bored? Is he just in the mundane? He feels like Groundhog Day. He's just doing the same thing every day. And he's like, what is it that God is calling me to fight for right now that's worthwhile, that's beautiful, that's kingdom oriented?
Yep.
And then just ask the Holy Spirit, God, give me wisdom and clarity on what it is that you want me to fight for.
Exactly.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. And and you can ask God's help with, and what does it look like to fight for my son right now? What does it look like to fight for my career? He'll guide you in that, and he'll show you things that he wants you to do.
Even just that last sentence there, this is, we can wrap up our time with this, but I wanted to pick your brain. I'm actually teaching at our church in a couple weeks, and I'm teaching in 2 Kings, Elisha, and there's the story where the head of the axe falls off into the river, and they need to find it. So Elisha throws in the stick and the axe. It's just it's kind of an obscure, weird miracle. What are the scriptures trying to teach us? And it seems like, and I keep digging into this passage over and over, and I'm like, there's got to be more. What is God trying to teach us through this one particular story? And it just feels like God cares about the details, the small stuff. And to be completely honest with you, that's hard for me to swallow. I don't know what it is about my theology or how I grew up in church, or I guess what I come back to is the idea that our prayers become very comfort focused or self-absorbed, or I would hear maybe women at my church growing up say, just pray for God to give you that front parking spot at Nordstrom. And I'm just like, does God care about that? I don't think God cares about that, And so my theology, I'm confused, as you can see in my rambling. I'm confused because what I'm struggling with is, and I think maybe Tim Keller said it this way, the idea of God being a father isn't just theoretical. It's God actually cares about you as a father cares about you.
That's right.
He cares about your soul in those wounds that we were talking about earlier. And he also cares about the scraped knee. He's big enough to handle all of that.
Yes. And
for some reason, I've really gotten stuck on just having these everyday conversations with the Lord in the little things. I get the big things, my marriage and my kids and salvation and being used, but the little things, and this is a very long-winded way of saying, so much of your writing has really helped me and challenged me to see God in the little stuff.
Yes.
And that God actually cares.
Yes.
And it seems like, even before we hit record on this podcast, we were having some audio issues. And it was so natural for you to just pray, God, help us with this. Help us with the microphone issue. Yeah. And I want to grow in that area. Maybe help, but can you just tell me, how did you get there? What does your practice look like of seeing God in the big healing stuff of my childhood wounds and all the way down to, Lord, help me with this microphone issue before we hit record here?
Yeah. Yeah, well, guys, you know this. You already know this. Anything you love doing, you love to read, you love music, you love riding your bike. You had to learn, and you learn through the little things. So actually, relationship with God starts in the little things. Before it's, you're praying for your dad's cancer, or you're praying for your kids, ADHD, and what do we do? And no, 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 no. Don't wait for the big stuff. That's like learning to ski by going to the top of the double black diamonds like that. Who would do that? No one would do that, right? You're going to go over on the greens for a while, and then the blue, and you're going to, the same is true in life with God. You actually practice life with God. It's something you learn like anything else in life. And it's something you're practicing hearing him and hearing how he's guiding you and leading you. Do it in the small stuff before the crisis hits. Because then people, oh Lord, is it time for us to sell the house? I just don't hear anything. Well, yeah, you're at the top of the double black diamond hill. You've never been on the greens. Practice in the small stuff. Right? Practice in the small stuff, and it will develop your intimacy with God for the big stuff.
And I've really, like I said, I'm teaching on this passage, and I've had to do my own wrestling match theologically, and it's been harder for me to try to make a case that God doesn't actually care about the small stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just like, keep going theologically and God's reputation throughout the scriptures, and it's like, he actually does. Now, that doesn't mean we become narcissistic, in this, in our spiritual, the whole world revolves around me, and but he actually does care about the small things, the small details of our lives.
That's right. I'm going to add one more thing to your fellas, because it's going to blow their minds if they're not thinking about it. Prayer is not primarily asking God to do things. Prayer is partnering with God to get stuff done. God always uses human partners. Okay. He could wave his hand and communicate the gospel to every human consciousness on the earth. That's not how he does it. He does it through neighbors and uncles and friends, right? He uses human partners. This is the Garden of Eden, all the way through the whole story. And so I want to reframe prayer for you for a moment and go, what does God want to see happen in my wife's life? I'm going to partner with him in prayer in that. What does God want to see happen in my kid's life, right? Well, of course, he wants flourishing. He wants good friends, kind of thing. And this is no longer narcissism. It isn't the parking spot, though he cares about that. I'm a partner with God. And what you see in the Elijah story is partnership. God could just make the axe head float, but he says, no, I want you to throw a stick in the water. You're like, okay, that's my part. I'm going to do my part. You do your part. You see a partnership. Right? That's just beautiful. And it's going to give so much purpose to your prayer life. You go, oh, holy smokes, this is partnership? I was never looking at it like that.
Yeah, that's so beautifully said. A lot of guys who are listening to the podcast want to find this soul healing. They want to find that inner work. I think you said, what did you say? I put it here somewhere, like that. You said that the enemy doesn't fear behavior modification. He fears healing. And I think that's what we're all about at Dad's Hired, like not behavior modification, but genuine healing. You've written so many books. I just finished your book, Resilient, or I don't know. I'm trying to be completely honest. I don't think I finished it, but I have been started reading it, Resilient. And it's been really helpful for me in this season of life. But what book of yours would you say, okay, if a guy is wanting to start that inner work healing journey for himself, which one of your books would you recommend for him to start with?
I would actually go to the newest book of all. I just released a book called Experience Jesus Really. And there are very specific chapters in there on integrative healing, how God brings it about, and how we participate in that process. I'd read that.
Okay, awesome. Your books have been so helpful, man. I'll just end with this. As I was in this intensive therapy, which was, I have a love-hate relationship with Colorado because it was the worst days of my life and it was the most healing days of my life. But we did a bunch of group therapy, and then we got assigned personal therapists, and you had no choice of who you got paired up with. And the guy that I got paired up with, my first thought was he reminded me of you. And that thought was he feels safe. And I'm going to get emotional just thinking about it. But Yeah. I just felt like, I've read so many of your books, and you have such a fatherly, and for those of us who didn't grow up with a father, it just feels like there's certain guys that I've gravitated towards, like, man, I feel like I could tell you anything and I'm
Hmm.
safe with you and
Yeah.
I'm going to find some healing. And he kind of embodied that same
Hmm.
posture, and it was God used that posture to really bring some deep healing. And so even from afar, you've been that for me. And I just want to thank you for that, and then allowing God to use you in my life personally.
Wow. That's a really beautiful thing to say. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, John. Well, brother, I appreciate your time so much. Congratulations on all the success you've had in books and the way God's used it. And the newest book, we'll put it in the show notes so that all the guys can go pick it up. But thanks for your time today.
Yeah, thanks, Jerrad. Great to be with you again.